He is from NBC Sports. He hosts the Peter King podcast. He is the NFL insider for Football Night in America and the author of Football Morning in America, the must-read every single day after the Sundays in your football season. He is Peter King. How you been, Peter?
Rich, everything's going well, thank you.
Okay, and you're kind enough to call into this show for our Honda Insider Report. And my first question for you is, what do you think of my list of MVP candidates right there, 6 all the way up to 1? What do you think?
Well, I would have Lamar Jackson, too. I would have him with his hot breath all over Russell Wilson's neck. But I definitely think Wilson's the MVP. I think Jackson is close. I think Aaron Jones's play slightly diminishes the case of Aaron Rodgers. And I think soon, I don't know exactly when, I agree with you about Deshaun Watson. I would have Deshaun Watson 3. I'd have McCaffrey 4. And I would have several people 5, among them Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. You know, at this time of year, you can list a lot of guys, but at the end of the day, I think you said it about running backs. You have to really have a generational season to be more important than any of the any of the 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. And so that's why we'll probably the vast majority of MVPs for the rest of our lives will be quarterbacks.
So what did we learn more from Week 10? Do we learn more about the Seahawks and Niners or more about the Saints, Peter, based off of Week 10's action?
I think every team during the course of most years, you see the Patriots, they've had some very ugly double-digit losses in almost every year that they've won the Super Bowl. So unless the Saints show me at some point in the next 2 or 3 weeks when they play Tampa Bay, Carolina, and Atlanta again, if they show me in the next 3 weeks that what happened at against Atlanta on Sunday was not a fluke, then I'll be worried about them. But I'm not worried about them. I think teams sometimes just have games like that. I think the thing that I would take away from this week most notably is that the Seattle Seahawks are not going away, and Russell Wilson is so far and away. And again, this is going to sound stupid, but I think he's so far and away the MVP of the league based on the fact that, if you look at his talent, I'm telling you, last night in overtime, on the first play of overtime, he threw a pass and completed it to a guy named Turner,
That's right.
who I never heard of before. I have no idea who he was. I had to look him up. I think his name is Malik Turner. I didn't know who he was. And then, he's got 2 huge passes down the stretch to Josh Gordon, who just walked into the locker room about 10 minutes ago. I just think what he did last night, even with the interception, even including the interception, which was a Dwight Clark-type fingertip catch, by that 22-year-old linebacker, Greenlaw of the Niners. I just think what he did was extraordinary. I think, on the other hand, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a cause for concern, Rich.
Why is that?
Because he was awful. He had so many moments that should have been big moments that he didn't respond to. Now, he did have some drop balls, but the biggest drop ball of the night was by K.J. Wright, which would have ended the game even before the game was supposed to end, most likely, in overtime. I was worried about how Garoppolo played in a huge moment. I have to say, probably the first huge moment of his NFL career. He had big, the Sunday night game where he replaced Brady a couple of years ago in Arizona. That was a big moment. the game last night was a huge moment, and he was not equal to that moment.
Well, I guess Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show on the Honda Insider Report. I guess to play devil's advocate here, I mean, Kittle wasn't in the game, and he lost Emmanuel Sanders in the first quarter of that game. The running game was stopped, and your former colleague and my current colleague.
He was inaccurate, though.
Right.
He was inaccurate. I understand. Everybody's going to have some injuries to their team. And again, I'm not saying that this is a trend, a pattern, anything. I'm just saying that really raised eyebrows with me how Jimmy Garoppolo played in big moments in this game, and it wasn't good.
Well, I guess, and conversely,
maybe it's a one-time thing.
Sure, and conversely, as you pointed out, that Russell Wilson is throwing to a guy who required a name tag for most all of us, and we are observers of the league professionally. I mean, there was one point Booger McFarland pointed out that Josh Gordon wasn't on the field for a crucial play, meaning he probably didn't know it yet, that they're probably running a play that he's not familiar with yet. And that's how Russell weaves it all in. Also, Jim Trotter, your former colleague, my current colleague at the NFL Network, said that Bobby Wagner, after the game, told him that he and KJ Wright began picking up on Jimmy Garoppolo's checks, which allowed them to break faster on the ball. They certainly looked like they were all over the passes, Peter. That's for sure. Last night,
I think so too, Rich. I think something was going on in that game that just didn't smell right about Garoppolo in the passing game. But, Rich, I'll also say one other thing.
Sure.
And this is 120 degrees different than what we're talking about, but I think it's important, and I wanted to get this point across. I want you to think about last night and think about these players on the Seattle Seahawks and what they have in common. Okay, Jacob Hollister, Josh Gordon, Jadeveon Clowney, Quandre Diggs. And why I like this franchise and the way it operates under John Schneider so much. Okay? They've got a quarterback who's fine. You just tell him what the rules are and what we have, and he'll make it work. He looked like Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski last night with Jacob Hollister, who, obviously is in his first year there, his first few weeks there, honestly. Josh Gordon just got there. 2 huge third down conversions, one on Richard Sherman in overtime.
Right, with Gordon. Yeah.
Clowney was probably played the best game of his life. Quandre Diggs with a huge interception after getting there at the trading deadline. There's a lot about this game last night that said to me, in the modern NFL, when a lot of times you have to make it up on the fly almost, give me John Schneider, Pete Carroll, and Russell Wilson, and I'll take on the rest of the league.
Peter King here on the Rich Eisen Show on the Honda Insider Report. This dovetails and works perfectly, Chris, into our poll question for the day. Ask it of Peter King. Go for it.
Yeah, Peter, who's the best team in the NFC? 49ers, Seahawks, Packers, Saints.
We only have 4 because we're putting it on Twitter. If you want to throw the Vikings into this conversation, Peter, feel free. Go for it.
I mean, I just think this is a fool's errand. I mean, I will pick New Orleans, but I would make an argument, and a good argument, for all 4 of them. That's why the NFC and the NFL is going to be so fun down the stretch. You know why, Rich? Listen, look at San Francisco's schedule. They play Green Bay. They play at New Orleans. They play at Seattle.
Yes, they do.
Look at New Orleans. They host San Francisco. And look at Green Bay. They got to play at Minnesota, and they're playing at San Francisco. All of these teams, we're going to know who's good at the end. It's one of the reasons why, Rich, and again, let's go 120 degrees different. All right? I must say I had this thought for a split second. I said, oh, no way. When San Francisco got the ball, with Seattle having no timeouts with 1:50 to go, Jimmy Garoppolo is having sort of a shaky time, and his big guys are not out there. There's 1:50 to go. There's no timeouts for Seattle. They're at their own 20. For a half a second, I thought,
yep, I know what you're saying.
It doesn't make any sense right here to just kneel. on the next 3 plays and run out the clock and take the tie. Because honestly, when you think about it, right now, they lost the game. They have a half-game lead for NFC supremacy right now, a half-game lead over Seattle and Green Bay, who are both 8-2. Now, if they had tied, they would have a 2-game lead in the loss column over any team in the NFC.
Yeah, we were talking about it.
Fascinating debate.
Peter, we were talking about it at the top of our show. It's just, even though Kyle Shanahan is rightfully called as sharp as he is, it's so difficult to game plan or prepare yourself to be placed in that situation when you know that playing for the tie is thoroughly unsatisfactory to every man, woman, and child in that building or in an owner's suite, in a general manager's suite.
I don't suggest that you do it.
I know that.
I don't suggest that you do it. I'm just saying it's the most fascinating thing that comes out of this game last night.
Well, and before I let you go here, the one team that's missing, and rightfully so, from this conversation is the Dallas Cowboys. I will give you the floor on the question that I get asked on this show when I'm chatting with my friends or people that just wanted to know, come up to me and want to know, why are the Cowboys 5-4, Peter? What would be the answer to that question? Why are they 5-4?
Well, in a technical sense, I would say that their biggest issue this year is that their offensive line might have the same people, most of the same people playing. They're not playing the same as the classic, as you'd think that Tyron Smith and those guys playing together in tandem. They're not playing as well as they did, so therefore they can't dominate a game on offense using the running game. Ezekiel Elliott is having a nice year. He's not having, a 1,600-yard rushing year that the Cowboys want to have their offense built around, okay? That's number one. And number two, I just think that we overestimated. The Cowboys have some very good players and some good talent, but we overestimated them a little bit at the beginning of the year. And I think that, having said all that, I don't think it's going to matter. I think at the end of the year, if they're a wild card team or they lose in the first round of the playoffs or whatever, I think Jason Garrett is probably going to go, and it might be time for him to go. This is getting to be a stale team with a lot of talent, and they might need to be taken by the scruff of the neck and shaken up a little bit.
And who's the one to do that? Who would Jerry turn to?
I thought forever that it'd be Sean Payton at some point.
Right.
But now apparently Sean Payton, who I think is probable now to become the Chuck Noll of New Orleans. I think there are two coaches right now, who I think have a really good chance to be Chuck Noll, and that's Harbaugh in Baltimore and it's obviously as well as Mike Tomlin could too.
Right.
Harbaugh, Tomlin, and now after he signed his extension in New Orleans, Sean Payton. I don't know who it is. Was there any way they can get a David Shaw to leave Stanford, or can they get Lincoln Riley? I can't answer that. I don't know. I mean, I actually have asked both those guys that question, but I do think that both of them are inclined to stay where they are. And does Jerry go very non-famous and do a Matt Eberflus or maybe do a Josh McDaniels? I don't know what he would do if he ended up getting rid of Jason Garrett, but I think he will be tempted to go famous because that's Jerry's way. But I have no idea who they end up picking. And
Steelers a couple wins away from Mike Tomlin being the leader in your Coach of the Year clubhouse. Wouldn't you agree with that, Peter?
Hey, look, I've always thought this, but his winning percentage with the Steelers is far above Noel and significantly above Bill Cowher, and yet he's terminally unappreciated. And, of course, he could have won another Super Bowl, let's say. But you can say that about a lot of teams in the NFL. I just think Mike Tomlin has control of his team, and now especially without Antonio Brown, without Le'Veon Bell, they get to build a team the way they want it. And you know what, Rich? I'll just say one other thing. I believe that when they lost Ben Roethlisberger, that was a motivating force for them to say, okay, we are building defense on this team. And that's why, in my opinion, it was a driving force into them going to trade their 2020 number one for Minkah Fitzpatrick.
He's been amazing.
You've got to say right now that looks like a great decision by Kevin Colbert.
Hey, and this year's version, in a way, of the Amari Cooper trade, right? Where you're like, what are you doing throwing a number one in next year's draft for something for a player that can't help you now? And
I would
look
say
at that.
I would agree, Rich, but I think the Minkah Fitzpatrick one is going to turn out to be more valuable just based on if you look at the way these teams are playing. The Cowboys are so in and out. That has very little to do with Amari Cooper. But I think the B12 shot that Minkah Fitzpatrick gave the Pittsburgh Steelers has been consistently, over his first, whatever it is, 7 games in Pittsburgh, significantly more impactful than the average weekly impact that Amari Cooper has had. And that has been significant. That was not a bad trade. I just think that it looks to me right now today that the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade is going to turn out to be more impactful for Pittsburgh.
Peter, always appreciate it. Always love our chats. Look forward to the next one already. Thank you for the call, brother.
Thanks a million, Rich. You take care.
That's Peter King, at Peter_King on Twitter. I follow him. He's a must follow.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.